Hello.
Hello.
How's it going?
Good.
Talking about some rucking today.
Rucking. You've had a fair amount of rucking in your life.
I've spent quite a time under a ruck, yeah.
So talk a little bit about like the history of rucking, because I don't know. I would think people probably know where that comes from, but I think it has become a little more mainstream, which is really cool. But obviously you've had a different association with it. So where does rucking originate?
I mean, rucking is just walking with a backpack. So there's a loaded component to it. It's unavoidable if you're in the military. And that's where I really experienced rucking for the first time. So the rucksack is the thing in which you put all your stuff. And in different units in the military, specifically in the Army, you have a various load out of your ruck. And so being in Special Forces, it's a very ruck-based selection program and train up. Paratroopers, same thing. You basically have to walk somewhere with all your shit.
Got it.
And that stuff is heavy. And
you have to prepare for that.
You have to prepare for that. Yeah.
So it makes sense because out in the world, for what you're training for, you might have to carry things on your back. So one would think you should prepare for that. So there's a functional thing. It's not just to beat people down, although there's that as well.
It is funny seeing. I don't really like to feed into the civilian veteran divide. Mm-hmm. But there is just a when you see something like rucking take off from the veteran, from the experience that I had.
Right.
And I know for a fact many share that as well.
Yeah, I think...
but I get it. Like, I do get it.
I think, though, most people who are rucking, and like this month is going to be a big rucking month for the community, so most people, though, aren't taking it to that extreme. Like, arguably, like, your back has some issues. Probably rucking contributed to that with, like, super heavy loads. That's, I think what makes it accessible to the average person is it could be 15 pounds in the backpack. It's not 45, 60, God knows what. So
I had insanely heavy rucks.
Right.
Like, to the point where, your back, hips, knees, ankles, neck is destroyed.
Right.
And as a veteran, as a Special Forces veteran, it's there. I'm not gonna lie. There was that point where, like, are you kidding me? People are actually doing this, like,
for like enjoyment.
Yeah, and like, this is like, if you want to do the real thing, join the real thing. It's like, and that's such a low evolution way. And so I think that the value of rucking, the value of walking with a loaded backpack, is really a wonderful opportunity for people. And it's why we incorporate. It's why we include it in between the ears stuff, for sure. But we're going to talk a little bit about how you might include some mindset components to really get it to be, to have it be something that is more than just, there's a physical object on my back.
Right. Great. Yeah. So that said, you were talking about loading your backpack in the military. You didn't really have a choice of what went in it. The mindset that we think it's kind of simple, but it's also like very poignant, is like, what is in your ruck?
Yeah.
So that's the mindset that we're offering up for really to kind of come back to throughout the month. Do you want to speak to kind of that, what's in your ruck, and what, from a mindset, obviously what's in your ruck, is it 10 pounds, 15 pounds, 45 pounds? Okay, that's loading. Mm-hmm. But from the mindset, how does that apply?
Yeah, I mean, what's in your ruck is different than how much is in your ruck. How much weight is in your ruck. So what's in your ruck is this question to take inventory of the things you carry, the experiences, the responsibilities that have a certain heaviness to them. Doesn't necessarily mean they're negative, but to, just take a look at like, what is the stuff that you're carrying in your life? And there's a wonderful opportunity for people to each day. Let's just say you're going to ruck every single day. To take 1 minute and look at the rucksack, open it up, and give yourself the time to think, what is it that I'm carrying? What is it that I have loading me down today? And again, that's not just a negative thing.
Yeah, and looking at that, I think the daily question is really interesting because it can help people frame, like if we're talking about, we'll go back to the analogy of like the military. There's certain things, if you know you're going to walk over a long distance and you're trying to alleviate load, there's some things like that have to remain in that ruck for your survival.
Yeah.
There might be other things that are like nice to have, but you can't take on that extra weight.
Right.
So I think it is a really, while it's like a mental exercise, of course, there's only so much capacity we all have. And every day that changes, and every day maybe what's going on changes. And it's kind of a great framing for like, kind of back to the question we've asked in other ways, like what can you tolerate today? Like what do you have, what can you handle today? And instead of being reactive throughout your day and just, well, I guess this is everything I took on, it is kind of cool to start the day and asking yourself that. And if there are like, okay, I have my kids' soccer game, like that's important to me, that has to be in the ruck. Want to make dinner for my family, have my work, but then what are those other things that maybe that's just not, I can't take that on today. So it's kind of interesting that it could be in a very, in a way of like just even looking at your day and what you can tolerate.
I like the concept of a ruck and what's in your ruck, because there's a physical object, a physical vessel. People talk about what's on their plate. And it's like, yeah, okay. The only way that gets off your plate, though, in this thing is through eating it and through consumption, right? And so when I look at the rucksack, I'm looking at it right now, and there's only so much that can fit in there. There's only so much space. The things that matter to us are heavy. Family, relationships, health, taking care of people, like those real things where they're heavy. They require effort, and they're wonderful, and they're going in there. In the military, it's like bullets are going in there. Batteries are going in there. Food is going in there.
Extra socks. They might not
throw
make
a pair in there. You throw a pair in there, but like nice to have is heavy too. Nice to have, and what if adds up? And just in case, if you put in a lot of just in case in there,
right?
Yeah, there's going to be unnecessary loading.
Yeah.
And so you look at that, and you're like, all right, well, because I only have so much space, let me be intentional with what I'm putting in my ruck today.
Yeah.
And let me prioritize the things that are most valuable to me, while also accepting that I don't get to choose all the time. Life's going to stuff some stuff in there. And, and so that's kind of this balance between what am I choosing to put in my ruck today, and what are the responsibilities and burdens that I have to bear and I have to carry right now, not kind of forever.
Yeah. And then I think there's like a bigger, that's kind of in the daily, what's great about this is it can be that daily practice. And then there's going to be maybe some bigger things that come up. Maybe there's something you've been carrying in your ruck for your entire life, bigger things. And maybe this month is sort of a metaphoric way of like letting that go, unpacking that out of your ruck, and that might be not just by doing a ruck. Maybe there's other things that go along with that, just deciding you're going to face that, but just the realization of like, wow, I have been carrying around this extra burden and I don't really need to anymore. And like, what are those bigger things? And just inviting people to look at that in the same way that when you realize how heavy your family and the wonderful things are, like being able to see that and celebrate it for what it is. So, I think that's where there's just so many opportunities. But as we keep coming back to, a lot of the ruck is really an excuse for awareness, just stopping in awareness, presence, gratitude. Like, it's kind of just an excuse to have a physical movement. And like you said, kind of a pausing and having awareness around that.
Yeah. And with that pause, with that awareness, that leads to intentionality. And intentional action is, I think, also different than needing to control all actions. So intentional action is, for example, if you're working with somebody, or if you have a big project, or if you have something important going on, I'm going to willingly put that in my ruck. I'm going to shoulder that significance because it's important right now. And I'm aware that I'm intentionally carrying that with me. The thing that can trip people up, because oftentimes the things that we carry unaware of maybe weren't even things we put in our ruck in the first place, or we don't remember putting it in there, or we don't know we put them in there. And that can be something like family beliefs. That can be something like culture and societal expectations. It could be just, what others around you are doing. And like, there's a lot of that people carry around. And I see this all the time in therapy with people who, when I ask kind of questions that are boiled down to like, well, where'd you learn that? Where'd you learn that you had to be a multimillionaire by 31? It's like, well, it's just, I don't know if I ever did it. It's just it's just almost this like, I don't know. It was just given to me.
Right. Just like their name.
Yeah. So I think the intentionality of a practice, and if you're going to ruck every single day, awesome. If you're going to ruck once a week, great. Whatever it is, whatever your practice is over the course of the next month, before you just ruck up and head out, ask yourself, like, what am I putting in here? And maybe what's in here that I didn't put in here? Like, you can go so many different ways with it.
Yeah. I think a nice compliment, and maybe it isn't every day, maybe this is more of a once a week, but to kind of follow up with that is maybe like a little journal practice after your ruck. Things kind of bubble up when you're walking, and and we've talked about that with the sled and the hill running, like there's that bilateral stimulation. And so as things kind of come up and percolate, we all think like, oh, that I'm going to remember that, and you don't. So maybe just having a practice of capturing it in a notebook. Just having a little download of your thoughts, what came up, because we found that extremely helpful. And also, it is kind of crazy when you start writing. You might think, oh, I don't know that I have that much to write about. But it starts coming, and kind of just, again, get some of that stuff out. Maybe you throw the paper away, or maybe you keep it. Doesn't really matter. But yeah, just also as that is concerned, it's not that every time you ruck, don't listen to music or a podcast, but trying here and there to maybe ruck without that external input so that you can kind of pay attention to what's coming up. Sometimes rucking with others and being able to have that side by side talking conversation can be really impactful as well. So, yeah. Anything else on what is in your ruck? For you personally, we've done, some intentional rucking. Do you recall like anything specific, profound that kind of, or not, just anything notable that's come up for you?
I think using the concept of what's in your ruck has been something I've been aware of, circling around for many years now. I think for me, I have felt lighter recently because of what I've realized I've been carrying around in my ruck and have now kind of taken out. And part of that is accepting limitations. Accepting that there are experiences and opportunities that I would have liked to have had and didn't. Things I would like to do, couldn't. Luck. Like, so many disappointments. I was thinking about even something, because our daughter now is applying to colleges and son is in college, and that's been like, I don't know, reflective for my point in time, and that was a really disappointing time for me. And I changed as a result of being told no by multiple coaches / schools because I did not step into potential. And then we unpack a lot of what was going on there and whatever, that's beyond this. But, I learned the significance and the purpose and the value of caring and of trying. And I learned that the hard way. And so like I look at that and I think about how other opportunities or other experience or other expectations, didn't go how I wanted them to go. And that can be haunting. And for me, that has been haunting. But when I see it for what it is, which is, it's disappointing. I would have liked to have done some more stuff in some other areas and had some experiences, but I didn't. And like, take it out. Like it's dead weight. Move on. Put something else significantly worthy and heavy in, right, and carry that. Find a new mission. See how you can be useful. See how you can be of service to others. Learn some new stuff. Put all that stuff in your ruck.
Right.
So it's just a great concept,
Yeah, I do think when you're talking about that, I mean, I think it is we talk about physical experiences that really lock in. You can read this stuff in books. You can read about, it's a classic thing that like sometimes parents, women, mothers, fathers, whatever, maybe like it gets complicated with like all multiple jobs and caring for a family and all these things. And you can understand, okay, I'm overdoing it. I'm taking on too much. But it's when you have that actual physical experience, you learn that, it's the difference of like knowledge and understanding. That knowledge is it doesn't equal understanding necessarily. So understanding that with your whole body, like of what it is to be loaded down versus just knowing it in your head. So for me, I'd say just kind of taking that time and using that question, what's in my ruck? What am I carrying? Just sort of maybe pause and see what, I just might not have room for today. So I think that's been really helpful and goes far beyond just the month of rucking. But this is a month to practice it and to get those reps of like feeling the load, asking the question, having the space and time to just consider it. Because you're not, when you're swinging a kettlebell and doing burpees, like that's just not coming up. So, so I think it's a really wonderful invitation. And I think it can be a really impactful month for people.
Yeah, and I guess I also want to just add that if you were to ask someone what they're carrying right now, we all have the reflexive answer. give yourself the chance to update that. Like, maybe don't answer it right away. Maybe ask the question. Because one of the things I've seen a lot of, people get good at telling their story. But this story has the potential to continually be updated and written. And if we stay orbiting around the same story, we stay stuck, stagnant, fixated on that, and it kind of gets entrenched. And the things we're carrying, the past experiences we've lived through, all of that stuff can sometimes become explanatory, which I think can keep people down, which can keep people stuck. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I think that's where a month of stepping into this practice, and it might not be every single day, it might be like one day a week, you know? But with curiosity, with openness, with compassion for sure, but giving also the chance to answer the question like new. What would it be like to answer, what are you carrying in your ruck? If you couldn't include all of the things you've already told people, or what you kind of know.
Sure.
You know, and I think that's where you look at like empowerment, and these types of exercises and these types of experiences where, you know, you can say, look, I lived through this thing and that's why I do this or I do that. And that may be true to some extent, but it might not be the whole picture.
Right.
So, you know, look to answer the question from a new perspective.
Yeah.
Not necessarily from the same old story.
And I think because it's not just one day, we're just rucking one day, there's multiple opportunities. So, you know, it's kind of like the hill run. People they're great at the first 3. I'm proud of myself because I'm a mom. I'm proud of myself for this. And then it's like kind of run out of things, and it's going to ask you to dig a little deeper below the surface. So,
yeah.
Awesome. Well, can't wait to experience this with everybody and see how it goes.
Very good.